It is my great pleasure to introduce to you our next speaker. This is Mel Niepold. She was one of my first patients when we started the B-Prep program, and also one of our first participants in the exercise study. She has been a wonderful advocate for our program and our research. She was on the nightly news last year. She did a segment for us, and she was also in the Wall Street Journal. So.
Oh, I didn't know about that. Whoops.
Well, it's in the packets. So we're so honored that you're here to share with us this morning, and thank you for coming.
The honor's all mine, actually. Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. Wow, the Wall Street Journal. Now I really have to sit down, I think. So as Dr. King said, I just want to turn my timer on to be very respectful, especially in a room full of doctors. Yes. Oh, slideshow.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Okay, so the reason I put the full name, Breast Cancer Personalized Risk Assessment, Education, and Prevention Program, is that honestly, I don't know about any of you, but when I go to B-Prep, it's B-Prep. I genuinely can honestly say I forgot what the E and the P were for. And as you'll see when I go through my slides, I'm really going to be focusing a lot on the E and the P. So I started with that. And I think the journey for all of us when we get to the clinic is, they hand you that device that it looks like a child's toy in a way. It's wrapped in rubber or plastic, and the risk intake survey when you get into the clinic was actually a first part of sort of my journey in learning about how different this clinic was. Like I'm sure many of you, I would go to my doctor, every year, and I would tell them my family history, which is now a really good time to say I am actually a candidate for the types of things that we've heard this morning. Great aunt had breast cancer, grandmother, maternal breast cancer, my mother had breast cancer, and my mother was a candidate for some of the latest genetic testing, and her results were all negative. I remember the BRCA test came first, and she was so excited. Her exact words were, "At least I didn't give you breast cancer," which is part of my story, because unfortunately that's not necessarily true. That's a mother's view, and we'll get to that in a minute. But that intake, that device that they hand you, I thought, how long is this survey? And why do I have to keep answering? You know my family history. It's all in your database. I've said my family history till I'm blue in the face. But wait a minute, what are all these questions about exercise, nutrition, sleep, stress? And I thought, wow, this is a different experience. I'm definitely in for something different. So beyond intake, let me advance. So the E, the education. I also noticed that while filling out my laptop survey that I looked around the walls and I saw these pamphlets and I thought, wow, there's a lot going on here, which is actually part of my story as well. I was being seen at a hospital in Cambridge, near where I live. The near where I live is an interesting part of the story because my mother was stage 4 and was, fighting cancer for 7 years. And every single time she would say, "I've been to your house. I know Dana-Farber is not that far away." And I said, "I know." And I have to be honest here. I said, "But the parking." And she must have said, it's a mother's love, she must have said 10 times, "Do you really think that's a good reason to not get the best information you can possibly get? Your sister's in, Maryland, you're this, that, and the other thing. Why don't you take advantage?" So when Dr. King and others have asked me, well, how did you find B-Prep? I have to say it was my mother. My mother is what forced me to say, okay, this is a little bit ridiculous. And then I thought, all right, I'll go at 11 a.m., traffic won't be that bad. It's terrible, but that's the mindset. And I'm here to tell you, I always take the 11 a.m. time slot. It helps because, I'm working, right? So the P, prevention. As you heard earlier, I am one of the first, I don't know if the first, but I definitely one of the first participants in the exercise study, and I am an apostle of the study. I think it is one of the best things ever, and I'm dying for the results to come out. But I've also gotten to a place where I loved it so much, I don't even care what the results say. Whether, in fact, it changes density, I mean, I know you all care, and we should all care, but it's changed other things in my life anyway. So that we're going to talk about in a minute. So the education, the prevention, and now, I've already said this was not your average intake study, and it's not your average office visit either. I have met with I think the social worker because I have claustrophobia, so the breast MRI has been a real challenge for me. I've even gotten better at that, which is, for me, that's a huge achievement. I had never been able to do a closed MRI in my life until, I'll remember this very well, Dr. King said, you're going to have to do a closed MRI. We don't do open. And I went, like that was just, you'll remember that. I was like, then maybe I'm not going to do that MRI. But I did. I got over it. I've met with the social workers. I've met with the nurse practitioners. I did the blood. I've signed up for that. I basically signed up. If they stick a piece of paper in front of me and say, would you like to sign this? I'm embarrassed to say, I usually just sign it. I love and trust this program so much that I have signed up for everything. So, clinical trials, we're going to get right into the heart of the matter. While I did sign up for the one where I've given blood samples, that's not the exciting one. The exciting one is this guy. Let's go crazy. This is Edward Kelly. He's an active Army reservist. You can tell by the haircut just how afraid of him I am. I walked in, first day of the exercise study, and they said, this gentleman is your trainer. And I said, oh, no, he isn't. I looked at the haircut, I looked at the linebacker, the neck and the shoulders, and I thought, maybe a trainer who's physically fit is part of their job description, but not this fit. He can deadlift more than his body weight. In fact, he can deadlift almost double his body weight. He specifically liked to tell me on frequent occasions that he can deadlift 375 pounds, to which I say, you weigh 180. How is that humanly possible? So Edward is actually, all of the trainers I'm sure are remarkable. They're all part of the Y. I think Edward was one of the first because I was one of the first. And he made it clear in our first session that he genuinely believed in the research. He wasn't just there whether he's paid, whatever the deal is, I don't know. He said, let's do this. Let's do this together. Those little weights for him are like probably popcorn. However, for me, they were serious. I want to say something about the Let's Go Crazy. That is one of the playlist songs. I decided to organize my talk around my playlist. So Let's Go Crazy is one of the songs, and you'll see in a minute some of the others. So that's Edward. That, as you might imagine, is a 5-pound weight. I am here to tell you, I used to lift those and think, this is good. I'm doing it. It's good. Not good enough. Because this is my playlist. Proud is one of my songs. Discovered that song when I worked for Deval Patrick. Love the song. Here's my playlist. Anyone who wants it, I will share it with you. It helps enormously. However, that is a 20-pound weight. Now, that looks small, and the blue one looked big, and that makes me mad. I should have picked a different slide, but on my first day with Edward, not to scare you, I think I may have started at 15. I definitely ended around 25 in each hand. 20 was sort of our happy place when I left the study and had to work out on my own. The difference between the 5 and the 20, I cannot underestimate how much that is. But you know what? I said, I'm 55. Edward, I'm not doing this. And he said, I don't care that you're 55. I'm telling you, you can do this. And I said, I don't think so. And he said, let's figure that out together. And I'm here to tell you, not only do I lift that weight regularly, I actually have come to enjoy it. It has become a very big part of my life. This, Treasure, is the song going with the theme, Bruno Mars, fantastic workout song. That is my mother. We're together in, Kenya. This necklace is from Kenya as well. My mother and I both work a lot in Africa. I thought I'd be better at this. Needless to say, my mother passed away last year. But the Africa part of the story is a big deal because we work in countries where there are no mammograms. We work a lot in East Africa, where the big news was that Rwanda had gotten their first machine. And that just seemed staggering to me. So when we look at this idea of research and leadership and findings, it's interesting because there's something to it. The women in these countries aren't overweight because they're dying, some of them are dying of malnutrition. They don't have a problem with exercise because they walk miles to get firewood. So, and yet they're getting breast cancer. Obviously they have stress like other people, but there's something interesting to me that how, as we begin to look at the new frontier of research, how can we also include the new frontier of access? And so what I found to be fantastic was that I heard when I was in East Africa that the only way to get medicine to the top of every hill was the Coca-Cola guys. They carry their little cases of Coca-Cola to the top of every mountain, so now they're giving them medicine to carry, like malnutrition and all kinds of other things. So I thought that's very cool. So maybe there's a new frontier for breast cancer screening and research that involves giving little portable things that I'm imagining you're hopefully creating and putting them in the backs of the guys who carry the Coca-Cola up to the top of every hill. Now, another song on my playlist is Run the World Girls by Beyonce, who is basically a goddess in my world. There's a lot of Beyonce on my playlist. These are my two daughters, Olivia on the left and Hannah on the right. It is truly, it's funny to me that I was, 15, 17. I had obviously been with my children for 15 and 17 years, and it wasn't until I did the risk intake survey that I thought, oh my God, I actually don't have sons. I know men get breast cancer, but it was a big part of my story. I thought, wow, I really, really, really have to do what I can because I have two daughters, and as you can see, I'm very proud of them. They're lovely. So, and they do run the world. They run my world for sure. So that's another one of my playlist songs. And this one, Ain't No Stopping Us Now. I'm from Philadelphia, so I'm a big fan of R&B. This playlist, I was listening to the lyrics the other day, and I thought, you know what? This is going to be the end of my talk because it talks about the power of collective it's a we kind of song, it's an us kind of song. And I think this is me working in West Africa, but the reason I put it up here was because one of the big things for me that was such a big deal in B-Prep is that it gave me a sense of community. And I think that all the work that you're doing involves community, whether that's global or domestic. I actually enjoy coming to the B-Prep clinic, and I never felt that way before. I was always dreading it. I was dreading telling them my story. I was dreading repeating my great aunt. I was dreading saying my great aunt died at 59, but it might have been 52. I can't tell you. I had told that story for 20 years. But now the shift for me is that this has really been a journey from I'm just going to do everything you tell me, and I left one key part of the story out. At 52, even though I never smoked, kept alcohol in moderation, ate my broccoli. I was telling Dr. Porvu I do eat broccoli and I love it. Watched the tofu, didn't eat the red meat, exercised not as much as I should have and not as much as I did with Edward. I still got atypical lobular hyperplasia and atypical ductal hyperplasia. And my lifestyle was, not to scare you all, Dr. King would not appreciate that. I thought, but I did everything right. Why am I getting this? And that's when the genetics comes in. Our family is one of those families that we just heard about. Dr. Garber, somebody said this, where I'm convinced it'll be sequenced one day, but it hasn't been sequenced yet. So in the meantime, what is profound is that rather than just waiting for the other shoe to drop, every time I would go in for a mammogram, I would say, is this the year? I mean, it's my family history. Is this the year I get diagnosed? Now I don't think like that. Now I think I'm doing everything right. I may not be enough. We'll see. But in the meantime, all of the exercise and all of the education that I picked up through the B-Prep clinic has changed my relationship to it from a mindfulness perspective. I'm sleeping better, I'm less stressed, I'm better at work, and I am moving through the world with much more hope. And I think, you know what? Whatever happens, that's a better way to live. So that is it. So my final message to you is there really is no stopping us. So thank you very much.